Hi Ben, we've started real live now.
Thank you, Harrison. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So you've joined us for the Powering Inclusion, Energy Access and Disability Technologies for Equitable Futures webinar. So a bit of housekeeping before we get into the session. Because this is a webinar format, your cameras and your mics will be off unless you're a speaker. But please do use the Q&A box as we go through because we're going to follow the chat. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, please put it in the Q&A box, and if we have time, we'll answer it directly in the webinar. If we don't have time, we'll either answer it in the chat or we'll connect you with the person that you're trying to speak with. So please do use that. For anyone requiring captions, there is a stream text link that we've shared in the chat as well. So if you click on that, that'll take you through to the stream text captioning. Okay, here we go. Next slide, please, Santosh. So before we get into the session, into the introductions, just a little bit of context. So as we go through today, we are going to signpost you to other resources and other networks as we go through. So two that we'd like to just foreground, and we will keep mentioning these as we go through. Some of you that joined us today may also be part of the innovation network that we've created through LinkedIn. So on the screen currently on the left-hand side, there's a QR code. So if you scan the QR code, it will take you to the LinkedIn group. So please do sign up if you're interested. There's over 100 members of that group now. I imagine probably half of you that joined today are part of that group already. The other half, please do join us. That's a chance for you to kind of network with people across the ecosystem. There's some interesting resources that we do share there, and just interesting chat between kind of various actors within this space. The second QR code there is a QR code that will take you to a series of training. So this is free. It's hosted on YouTube. It was created by GDI Hub, who I'll introduce soon, as part of our disability support service to the Transforming Energy Access platform. It's a great series of quite bite-sized training materials, and it covers all aspects of disability inclusion, and specifically those that might be relevant to you if you're an energy access business or a program team, all the way from innovation subjects to inclusive design to business cases, business models, the built environment. So please do access that if you're interested. We've had really good feedback from the program teams and downstream partners on those training sessions. Next slide, please. Okay, so just some context. The Disability Support Service that I've already mentioned, or the DSS as we call it, is all about championing inclusive innovation across the transforming energy access ecosystem and beyond. We offer a targeted support to the platform, and we blend expertise across disability inclusion, innovation, assistive and accessible technologies, and inclusive design. And we use that to equip program teams and downstream partners and innovators with knowledge, with tools, with networks to enable the integration of disability inclusion in whatever it is that you're doing. But also that's kind of in line with the commitments of the UK FCDO's disability inclusion and rights strategy. So there's kind of an imperative there as well. But we have covered strategy. There's a Gen Z strategy, which we'll mention later. The training that we've already talked about. We offered a technical assistance package. There's still a little bit of resource there that we can use, and I'll talk about that later. Lots of networking, so events like this as well, and the LinkedIn group, but also the dissemination of knowledge products, so public knowledge products. So already we've produced a white paper and a briefing note. I haven't got the links in this deck, but we can share those afterwards. Next slide, please. So you may be, if particularly if you're an energy access person, innovator, program leader, you might be thinking, well, disability inclusion, so what? How does that, what difference does that make to me and, my everyday life? There's some numbers on the slide there. There are 1.6 billion people that have a disability in the world. That will rise to 2.5 billion by 2050. There's proven return on investment into the business case for disability inclusion. It's relatively low cost to implement, especially if it's done early. So implementing inclusive design and disability inclusive practices early is relatively low cost, and there is a payback. And it genuinely does open up funding. So that's not only from a kind of a project perspective. So if you're able to identify projects at this intersection, you can go for funding. There are routes for that. But also, the strategic element to this, like the GEDC, so gender equality, disability, and social inclusion. If you can show that commitment and strategy, that's key also to unlocking funding opportunities. Next slide, please. So part of the work that we've done is to just ask two simple questions to two different ecosystems. That on the one hand, we're speaking to the energy access ecosystem, and we're saying, how can disability inclusion make sense for your energy business? And then on the other hand, we're addressing the assistive tech or disability focused ecosystem. And we're saying, how can you, your business, your organization harness clean energy technologies, clean energy practices? And really, the magic's in the middle there. So we're bringing those two ecosystems with those two questions together. And that's really the focus of today's webinar, where it's kind of the culmination of quite a lot of work where we've been asking these two questions and bringing the two ecosystems together to create opportunities that didn't exist before. Next slide, please. So a little bit, have I jumped ahead? Can you, next slide, please? Yeah, keep going. Next one. That's it. Thanks. No, back. Thank you. Santosh is on a mobile connection from Chennai, so I think there's a bit of a lag on the line, but thank you, Santosh. So a little bit about GDI Hub, or Global Disability Innovation Hub. We accelerate ideas into impact for a more just world for disabled people and all people. We work across the world in more than 50 countries now, actually, and we've reached, these numbers are a little out of date, more than 50 million people. And we work mostly through partners around the world. So we grow new tech and ecosystems, we support and scale innovations, we strengthen systems, we conduct pioneering research, we share a lot of that with the world, and we build partnerships. And the bit where I was talking about the magic in the middle, we do like that space. A lot of our work exists in those intersectional areas because disability is a cross-cutting theme. So disability in gender, disability in financial inclusion, disability in climate, disability and the built environment. All of those intersections we are active within, and that's really where our strengths lie as an organization. Next slide, please. So on to today's session. So by way of an introduction, my name is Ben Hardman. I'm Head of Innovation Ecosystems with GDI Hub, and the team running the session today are myself, Santosh and Harrison. They'll be mostly behind the scenes. You might see them pop up occasionally, but we're all here to just make sure this runs smoothly. Next slide, please. But the reason why we're here is to really shine a spotlight on some of the great work that's already happened as part of the Disability Support Service over the past 18 months. And we're doing that through spotlighting a couple of collaborations that we've been able to broker through our work. So we'll get onto who they are in terms of who those people are and who those organizations are, but also crucially, what those innovations could become. That's the meat of the session today. So we've got two of those coming. Very excited to present those to you and really get your your feedback and your reactions to them. There are more that we're working on, but we featured two today. And then the last section in today's session is really where we start to bring in the voice of the ecosystem, the wider ecosystem. So we have leaders from both within the Transforming Energy Access platform and Carbon Trust, but also beyond. And we'll be reflecting on the past 18 months. We'll also be looking ahead, and we'll also be bringing in insights and stories from beyond the Transforming Energy Access platform. So very excited to run through this today. We've got 50 minutes. That should be enough, but it's going to be quite pacey. So yeah, let's get into it. Next slide, please. Okay. The first innovation pairing spotlight is a collaboration between Build Education and Smart Club. I'll pass over to Adrian and Charles to introduce themselves, but just as a scene setter, we know that there's a critical gap in bringing quality education to learners in hard to reach and or low connectivity communities. And so this collaboration really demonstrates how AI-powered offline learning combined with resilient energy systems can make education scalable, affordable, and accessible. So I'm going to hand over to Adrian and Charles.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Go ahead, Charles.
Thank you, Ben. And yes, that's the right slide. So a little bit about Smart Club. We are business model innovators in the community energy space. You may ask why so niche? Well, I used to be head of innovation for a global energy company. And in that role, I came across lots of tech. The tech is doing really well, and Adrian will prove that to you in a moment. And I was thinking, well, we're not going to fail to achieve 2050 climate change targets with a lack of tech. But what I did notice in any community I worked in, mostly around Europe, is that as energy got smaller scale, the business models to make it viable were very, very poor. And this is the missing piece. If we don't have good business models, the tech is not going to work on our behalf to solve a multitude of problems with equitable energy access, etc. So I formed Smart Club to meet this need. And cut a long story short, did many innovative projects, but the one that is important here to highlight is I did an award-winning project with the University of Nottingham called Trent Basin with a community, a real live community. It became a living laboratory on what we can do with community energy, and not just the technology challenges it solves, but also the social ones. One thing led to another, and we ended up applying 12 years of learning to an African version of the project. And we now have funding for 3 years, and we're well into the first year of that, to test my business model in 10 schools in informal settlements in Nairobi. We've co-created many services that add on to the education services that we provide our community energy hubs, because they're all based around schools. So of course we provide stable energy, IT, lighting, clean cooking, but also lots of add-on services as well for the community. But there is a missing piece. Our first 2 schools go live just before Christmas. But we have no ability to cope with disabled kids. The informal schools just don't have the skills and the resources to do it. So I was very happy for Ben to introduce me to Adrian. Adrian, over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Charles. Are we going to the next slide? I think so. I can just show Build Education. So I'm part of Build Education along with my colleagues Marcus Schultz and Niall Marshall. I'm also co-founder of a company called Connect, which is an AI ed tech company developing technologies to leverage AI and hopefully create better education. And with Build Education, what we're trying to do is address the problem of high quality education being very expensive and not scalable and not accessible to many people. So ironically, through the use of AI technology, we're able to bring back some of that high touch element that we have with high quality education. Ideally, we'd love every child, disabled or not, to be able to have a lot of contact with teachers and have a very interactive experiential experience. Unfortunately, that's not true even in Western Europe, let alone in certain parts of the world, like many parts of Africa. So using this technology, we've been able to create a school in a box where we can bring the learning to the students through our AI school in the box, AI-driven school in the box, where we have the curated curriculum, and the students are able to learn through a very live, personalized experience. So it's not only personalized in that it allows the students to go at their own pace, but also it adapts the content to the interests and the needs of that particular child. We have built into it a teacher support part. That's a very important part of the offering, in that, especially when working with children with disabilities, part of the problem is training also the teachers how they can adapt their lessons and their teaching to those particular students. So we have a version which we'll go on to on the next slide, which is a school system, but also at home access. And maybe back over to Charles to give the overview of how our two offerings come together.
Yeah, so we've called this Operation Enable. I have a massive need for supporting teachers and the learners with disability-focused education. But as I said, no capability to do that. And this is so frustrating. I have a ground team. I have a researcher in 10 schools in Kibera and Kangemi slums. I have a network of people who know all the disabled kids in the community. They just never arrive at school because the school doesn't have the skills or the tech to help them. I have everything I need in terms of a vibrant community that want the help. But I need the tech to actually go the last mile and provide a service to the whole community. So whilst I've solved their clean cooking programs, I've solved laundry access to keep clothes clean. I can pump water from the aquifer under Nairobi to get cheaper water into children's mouths, all of those things. But the huge missing piece, which is so frustrating. As I said, I have the capability to do this, but not the tech. So meeting Adrian was a great day. And we've worked out some use cases for children that we can help. Whether they can get to school or not, we can help in both cases. We can open the schools for special learning on Saturdays, give them the school in the box to take home fully charged, and they can then access learning for 2 hours a day during the week, and then come back on Saturday with a catch-up session. It's such a simple idea. We'd love to be able to make it work and pilot it at the same time, because I have 2 years left on my project. It would be great before I scale up across 10,000 schools to include disability components in it. Back to you, Adrian.
Hey, thanks, Charles. And it's been really great teaming up with Charles because there were two constraints we have with our school in the box, and I have one of them here, this little box. One of the problems is power. How do you power? Then we were recently out in Sierra Leone, where we were in a village where there was no power, and also internet connectivity. So what we've been able to do is actually put a small large language model that's been trained and fine-tuned for education, and particularly the curriculum of our target students into this little box. So with Charles, we've been able to get the energy, and we've been able to get past the need for internet connectivity through having the application, the AI model, and everything sitting in the box, and the students can and teachers can access via a local hotspot that we create from the box as well. So I think we have 2 minutes for Q&A.
I would love to have your questions.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, amazing. I think this is just such a great example of where of two complementary technologies and business models that are almost like made for each other. So we're really excited about where this could go. As excited as you guys are. I've got loads of questions, but I'm going to I'm not going to give the mic to Jennifer, but I'm going to read Jennifer's question out to you. Hopefully you can take this one live. I think this is more for Adrian. So Jennifer, thank you for your question, Jennifer, by the way. Jennifer, I think what you're saying is you are a disabled architect from the USA. You have a disabled child. One issue during virtual learning is social connection. Do you have any focus on accessible social engagement? Jennifer's also earning her teaching as an English as a foreign language certificate and loves the concept of school in the box. Thank you, Jennifer. That's for you, Adrian.
Yeah, excellent question, and really a very good point. With what we're doing with School in the Box is we don't want to take the human element away. We'd like our students to be able to interact and to learn from each other, and that's part of the great the great part of learning. So yeah, that is something that I hope that what we would allow, what we're focusing on right now, is more the learning part that they would get from the school, and maybe those students that we're targeting initially would not have access to the school. We hope that would maybe free up time for them to concentrate on the social engagement when, for instance, as Charles mentioned, they're able maybe on a Saturday to come into school, not just to go through lessons, but then to engage with other students. Charles, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would just add that the social element of everything that we do with our community energy hubs is an incredibly strong part of it. So our one part of our ground team is a wonderful organization called Map Kibera, who've digitally mapped all the Nairobi slums. And so we know where the disabled children are, how they relate to the schools, how we can get them into a network. There's a network already forming. And whilst the school timetable is very much prescribed in our community energy hubs, Saturday isn't prescribed by the Ministry of Education, so we can do informal education with special classes for special needs. So we definitely have that as part of our plan to have a very strong social engagement part.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Charles. We've had a few other questions in from Alicia, James, Howard. So thank you for your questions, everyone. And James, thank you also for the offer of connections with SEND schools as well in the region. We don't have time to ask all the questions. I'm going to just pose one more. Let me just select one. Okay, so Charles is from Uganda. Happy that you have a program in Nairobi. How will these programs be scaled to the entire vulnerable communities here in Africa? Big question.
Yeah, shall I take that one? So we have a scale-up plan. So although our pilot is for 10 schools, everybody involved in the project knows the prize is 10,000 schools. That's the minimum we want to do across sub-Saharan Africa, starting in East Africa. So next we go to Rwanda, then Uganda, then Tanzania, then we're into Ghana, and then Nigeria is the approximate sequence. That will happen as soon as we get funding for the scale up. The funding is there. Our funders just say, prove the business model, and then the money's there. Everybody loves the idea. Why wouldn't you? So the scale up will definitely happen. It's just my dream is to make sure from day one of that scale up, which starts in 2027, that we have disability catered for, and it's not still a glaring hole in our offer.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited. Just want to reiterate about the potential here. There's been a few other questions asked in the chat, Adrian and Charles. If you could, once your section's over, if you could dip into that and answer them directly, that'd be really useful. There may also be some questions for GDI Hub team. So for the GDI Hub team on the call, if there's anything we can address, please just dive into the Q&A. And apologies, we haven't been able to answer all of the questions live, but I'm glad there is lots of interest. So yeah, Adrian, Charles, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to the next innovation spotlight. So another very, very exciting collaboration here. So again, we know there's a pressing need to make clean energy education accessible to deaf and hard of hearing learners. That's really, really clear. This collaboration demonstrates how AI-enabled sign language tech can remove those communication barriers and enable genuinely inclusive participation and skills development. So to go into that in much more depth, I'm going to pass over to Shalom and Winnie from SiriusX Energy and Signverse. Over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's a pleasure to be here. And to get us started, I'll give a background of SiriusX Energy, particularly the subsidiary SiriusX Energy Academy. So generally, our vision for SiriusX Energy is to make clean energy accessible and affordable to people across all abilities. So our general goal is to leave no one behind. So for the Academy is a clean energy education platform that was established to grow that skilled network of energy leaders from across various countries, starting from Nigeria, to help drive energy transition in Africa. And to achieve this goal, we've been able to design programs that combine both theoretical and practical experiences. So the first is the SiriusX Energy Fellowship. It's a 3-month virtual incubation program that exposes participants to climate simulation skills, clean energy introduction, and AI. And for the physical training, it's more in-depth into the practical exposure of solar wind hybrid systems, and the empowering communities is more of an advocacy program. And finally, the solar wind hybrid system workshop is create that opportunity where we would have community members and people across all sectors. So women, people with disabilities, and other marginalized groups, such that they are not just beneficiaries of clean energy technologies, but actually active participants in the development and deployment. And so far, to achieve the goal, we've harnessed some distinctive approach. So first, we try to simplify our clean energy training curriculum, and then incorporate some assistive solutions such as engaging expert sign language interpreters, using AI-enabled captions and some practical demonstrations, and finally co-designing this program so that we have them done together with communities. And with our achievements for the fellowship, we started last year. So the first cohort, we had 30 fellows from 3 African countries. And one of the notable achievements was having over 36% female representation for the fellows and 20 for the facilitators. And on the other hand, for the second cohort that completed this year, we increased participation to 50 fellows with from 13 African countries, and about 44% female representation in the fellows, and achieved gender equality for the facilitators. But one specific thing that we did this time was to include people with disabilities. And I'm going to pass it on to Winnie to tell you a little bit about some of the challenges that we faced and how Signverse would help us to solve that. Thank you. Over to you, Winnie.
Thank you so much, Shalom. Yes, Signverse. Signverse, we are an assistive tech company / social enterprise based here in Nairobi, and we work at the intersection of technology and the deaf community. And what we've built is what we like to call our Google Translate for sign language, ideally a platform that takes in text and speech and transforms that or interprets that into lifelike avatar that you can see on your screen that interpret the content that you've been put into it. Overall, looks like a very simple solution that can be deployed anywhere. But I think particularly for the energy sector, it is very life-changing that you can imagine or plan to include people with disability. And it's a very intentional and active component of, for example, what SiriusX is doing with their training programs and being intentional about having PWDs and the deaf community be active participants within the workforce. But then the solution that we are talking about is something that can be embedded within channels from end to end to ensure accessibility. So what this collaboration, I think, highlights is one, including the deaf community within the workforce. And something that I might need to mention is the fact that we're no longer approaching this as a charity case or any solution that are meant for people with disability as a charity case. Research, I think even Ben highlighted that 12x returns for any investment that companies make. And that's true, about a return of 12 GBP for every GBP invested in the workplace, because, for example, for the energy sector, you go through so many losses if you don't include the deaf community, and they make such a big percentage. 1 in 5 people suffer from hearing loss. I think we can see from the statistics of SiriusX, particularly, the growing interest of the deaf community in training such as this. And the reason why they don't get this access is not because of lack of interest. You can see they're interested. It's because of that access. If you go to Spain and that is what is being spoken, you may not be able to understand it. So yeah, the numbers are growing. There's growing interest to ensure that the PWDs or the deaf community are included, but there are no solutions that make that accessible for them. So Signva stands at the intersection of the energy system and PWDs and the deaf community, particularly to ensure that training programs are accessible in sign language. You have repetitive content that you do, make that accessible in sign language, have live interpretation or transcription of all your training programs, and you don't need a human interpreter for this. We've spoken about the fact that the deaf community, one, is very marginalized, and the fact that they don't get access to education or are not involved in the workplace makes them be marginalized further. So we talk about the energy sector and including the deaf community. One, there is a return for that. You invest in this, and then you have an entire community, an additional workforce that is working, an additional market that you can sell to, and an additional community that is contributing towards ensuring that cleaner energy, and they're also involved in the workforce. And it's not a matter of Vision 2030, and this is what we're doing, but we're active participants, and to ensure that a big component of the world and of the community are contributing towards this. So I think this is a very exciting opportunity and collaboration to see how sign language interpretation can unlock a series of opportunities and potential for the deaf community in Nigeria. I think, Shalom, maybe we can go to the next slide and highlight some of the challenges you faced with your training that got us here. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Winnie. Just as Winnie mentioned about how the growing interest of deaf and hard of hearing communities in clean energy education, we have been able to have over 200 people registered for the solar wind hybrid workshop, and out of that 200 participants, over 80% of them were people with disabilities. So the interest is there, and we have seen that. But one of the challenges that we faced in incorporating people with disabilities to our training program is the limited availability of sign language interpreters, and also the challenge of sustaining that interpretation throughout long or repeated training sections, which created that major barrier. And we're happy now to collaborate with Signverse to complement those interpreters, reduce overdependence, and ensure that clean energy education remains truly accessible, consistent, and inclusive for all learners at all times. And not just to take much of your time, I just wanted to highlight some of the future potential, which is that there will be real-time communication support. It positions this program as a regional model that not just for Nigeria, we can be able to integrate this accessibility framework to other countries and have that opportunity to create the first ever Nigerian Sign Language database and 3D avatar. And I'm just going to close with this while giving it back to Winnie. This is a testimonial from one of our deaf fellows who said that the program was very inspirational to them, and it helped them to understand clean energy technologies. And so this collaboration will serve as a boost for fellows like Emmanuel NSC, so that he can be fully participate in clean energy technology, clean energy education, as well as accelerate his access to careers, in the clean energy space. Over to you, Winnie, to conclude. Thank you.
Thanks, Shalom. I think this collaboration is what happens when you get assistive technology together and energy. You have an active, let's say, intention to make sure that PWDs or the deaf community are included. We offer the solution that bridges that gap. And ideally, we are talking about sign language interpreters being expensive and being inaccessible. This is a digital solution, AI powered at the comfort of your phone, that you can use for any interpretation services. Think about live captioning and live interpretation of training modules, and you will have no need for a human interpreter. Think training modules that are repetitive being accessible and somewhere online that the entire deaf community can access also at the comfort of their devices that are increasingly becoming accessible towards for the entire global community. So yes, there is potential here. We see there is the growing interest, and our solution stands at that intersection to ensure that the deaf community who are very interested in this education training or this training that is offered by Sirius X is accessible for them. And I think what we're looking at is the millions of the deaf community worldwide having success stories like Emmanuel. I think they're dreamers in the world. They may be deaf, and we need to unlock those dreams and to ensure that their potential is seen, and that we can have more stories like Emmanuel's story of unlocking opportunity and a success story. And this is just one story. Imagine it being for the 600 million deaf people worldwide. Yeah, thank you so much. I think that is it for me.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you, Shalom. Wow, it's just so inspiring to kind of hear you talk about what's possible here. Sirius, you're doing some amazing work, in accessibility already. And Signverse, we know you quite well. We know kind of how transformative your technology will be, in future. So I think the combination of the two is super, super interesting. I remember the first conversation actually I had with one of your colleagues, Shalom, actually, and this was brokered through the ECAP team. So thank you to the ECAP team. And she was describing the sign language interpretation that you already provide is through human sign language interpreters, right? And they all do great jobs, but you have access to like two people, two people that you can in the country, and also those two. So already it's restricted, but it's quite a demanding job actually being a sign language interpreter, so you need breaks. You can't just interpret for a day. So they have to, they have to work between the two of them to deliver something that's effective, to your audience. So I think the beauty of kind of Signverse is that really, it doesn't replace the human sign language interpretation. It just enables greater access to a similar type of support. So I think, it's super, super exciting. I don't think we've got a question directly to you, but I've got one, and just very quickly, how quickly can this happen? And what would you do next?
I think I can take that.
Winnie, we've lost you, I think.
Okay, so I'm just going to come in here. We've developed a scope of work for a year. So the first is to ensure that the
process for, sorry?
Okay.
Winnie, we lost
Winnie,
you.
you can go ahead.
Yeah, we lost you, Winnie, but you go if you're back. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm back. I hope you can hear me now. I think it's a matter of data collection at this point because we already have the technology to digitize the solution end to end, collect data for the Nigerian Sign Language that this collaboration also sees potential of. And I think creating the first digitized Nigerian Sign Language dataset, something exciting, something pioneering, and eventually expansion into the Nigerian Sign Language market as well, because we know that sign languages are very unique to regions. So there's the Kenyan, the Nigerian, the international sign language, the American sign language. So the future is exciting for digitizing sign language and creating the biggest data set for Nigeria. And yeah, digitizing that and having that on our platform as well. Yeah. About timelines, I think about 6 months to a year, if we can start right now. Yeah.
Sorry, Ben, you're on mute.
Muted.
Sorry. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions, but we don't have time for them in the call. But please do dip into the Q&A, Shalom and Winnie, and just see if there's anything you can answer directly. You might be able to connect with people there. And congratulations to Shalom for definitely the best background of the session. So moving swiftly on. So to our last section of today is where we bring in voices from the wider ecosystem. And the idea is that we're surfacing system level insights here and learnings from innovation interventions wherever they're happening, including within the Transforming Energy Access platform. So we've got a great roster of speakers. We don't have long, so this is going to be relatively quick. But we're gonna get some conversation going with Angus, Michaela, Anna May, Huda, and Caroline, and they represent Carbon Trust, Transforming Energy Access platform, but also Global Disability Innovation Hub, who we work in other similar spaces. And also Huda from Selco to bring in an external kind of perspective too. So we're going to dive straight in. So if you're one of the panelists, please remember to unmute your mic, unlike I did a minute ago. First question is to Angus. So Angus, when you reply, could you also just give a quick intro to yourself, who you are, what you do? But the question I've got to kick things off is, you represent the Transforming Energy Access platform and Carbon Trust and Prio, I think. So what actually led you to kind of integrating the DSS concept into the platform initially, and then how has that worked to enable program teams and downstream partners to identify these innovation opportunities?
Yeah. Hi, Ben. Thanks for the invite and thanks for the offer to be here. So great to speak to you. My name is Angus van der Wood. As you said, I'm Associate Director at the Carbon Trust and I lead the delivery of tea from the Carbon Trust perspective. I guess to answer your question, I probably want to provide a very brief bit of historical context, knowing that we're very short on time, but tea's been running for quite a long time now. 2016, I think it started looking at unlocking energy access for small enterprises and poor communities, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. To date, it's supported about 750 partners in 60 or so different countries and impacted positively 30 million lives in terms of access to energy. So initially it was focusing, because this is a UK aid innovation program, inclusivity has always been a kind of core element and function within it. And initially I think we focused more on gender and localization. But as the aspect of how we were looking to deliver this became ever more about localization and I guess hardest to reach communities, disability came up as a kind of natural growth mindset for us to work in that space, I guess. Like we know that disability is both a cause and a consequence of poverty. And I suppose one of the things that assisted us in this was we worked with our voice of customer partner 60 decibels that essentially do customer survey work for some of our delivery partners, and they undertook a disability insight piece of work that showed that there was about 4% prevalence of disability within the households that T was servicing. So we could extrapolate that to roughly around 1 million people with disability that had some form of positive impact through T. And we wanted to kind of mainstream the thinking of disability within the program more broadly. So, there's a lot of innovation going on, technology, products, service models, business models. And as you mentioned earlier, Ben, engaging early with disability considerations in the design is a real win-win. So it seemed like a very obvious way to go. FCD had already worked with GDI Hub through the 80-20-30 program and connected us up. And I think we sort of built a scope and a relationship through that, which was built on approach with, as I said, 750 or so organizations and partners. We're really looking to maximize the efficacy of what we were looking to deliver. So that led us to a kind of funneling approach in the way that we engaged through sort of broader white paper approaches and a JEDSI toolkit that's available to all partners. We provided workshops and trainings and one-to-many sessions like that. And then we've run these kind of ideation sessions where we've created 9 different partnerships through the Innovation Network, including the 2 projects you just heard from earlier on today. So that's the success of the way that it's been delivering today, and I think it's run really well so far. We've yet to complete. T comes to an end in its current guise next financial year, and we'll undertake no doubt some learnings and reflections. But I'm sure it'll be an important consideration within the next phase, and we might want to bring it into a higher kind of Ayrton level perspective so that we can get better visibility and inclusion going forwards. I hope that answers your questions. A bit rambling, sorry.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Angus. No, it's really great to get that insight and the kind of the narrative from start to finish. And like you say, it's we are at we're at an inflection point now. We're kind of drawing some of this to a point, and that point's going to provide lots of learnings, lots of hopefully opportunities going forward. So really excited to see what the next incarnation of the T platform and the support services looks like. So thank you so much. I might come back to you at the end as well, as well with all the other speakers, just for some closing thoughts. So thank you, Angus. So a little bit of a kind of a pivot here to things that are happening outside of the T platform. So Anna May, I'm going to come to you next. Again, when you respond, could you just give a brief intro to who you are and what you do? But I'd like to hear, and I think the audience would be interested to hear a little bit about the Frontier Tech Hub project, Smart Mobility project. Sorry, your role and what learnings you think could be taken back to the T platform and the Disability Support Service, and I guess other similar interventions.
Thanks, Ben. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I have a little bit of connectivity issues today, but it's been really great to hear from all the different panelists. So my role is as an inclusive design researcher at the Global Disability Innovation Hub, and my role on the Frontier Tech electric mobility pilot or project was kind of lead the coordinating effort from GDI Hub side of things, so including kind of initial background research, identifying and bringing partners together, having them work together, and arranging logistics and facilitating device trials in country. So to give maybe some more background on the project as a whole, so the pilot project was co-led by the Global Disability Innovation Hub, but also worked in partnership with Frontier Technologies, which is a consortium of Results for Development, DT Global and Brink, and also the FCDO, which is the UK government's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. So the aim of this pilot was to deliver a pilot to introduce an innovative electric mobility solution in urban Kenya. So building on successful implementations in Colombia and India, the pilot tested detachable electric third wheel attachments for wheelchairs, designed to significantly enhance mobility and accessibility for persons with disabilities and to open up opportunities that barriers to mobility can limit. So this was the first time that this type of technology was trialed in sub-Saharan Africa, and it created a really robust evidence base for further development. It was kind of at a pilot stage that it tested the devices particularly in the informal settlements in Nairobi, and kind of tried to test those devices within the kind of most difficult kind of infrastructure parts of the city, because through 80-20-30 with the Global Disability Innovation Hub, we had also done research into the infrastructure and how it needs to be enabling in order to, allow people to use assistive technology. From learnings from that pilot, then I would say that the pilot had a lot of learnings in relation, no doubt, as everybody on this call has in their individual projects. But I think what was probably most interesting was in relation to scaling from country to country of an assistive technology device, and the importance of building partners, both in country when you're trying to bring one device from one country to the other, and also the kind of importance of building partnerships with kind of related industries which maybe aren't disability focused, because I think that was a real strength of this project. In this case, it was around e-bikes providers, because that's probably the closest to a third wheel attachment for a wheelchair device. And I think there's a lot of local knowledge that you can learn from about kind of supply management and also cultural context, especially around like biometrics in devices. We found that from Colombia and India, obviously wheelchair device users had much different kind of body types and kind of metrics to that, and that really needed to be looked at as it was scaled up. But also things around supply management, and also like things around batteries and logistics to getting things in country, and also around kind of local capacity to manufacture. So I think it's really important then to remember that there are strengths you can learn from those local partners, but also as people bring different assistive technologies and scale them into countries, to really marry your strengths with the partner you're working with in country. And I think that really shows from some of the things we saw today, is when you bring two things together, you can really learn from each other. And if you're working maybe with a partner where disability inclusion isn't maybe their strength, but their strengths lie in something else, how you can marry those together, and maybe you can learn more about supply management and how to scale up, but they can also learn how to maybe make their maybe more mainstream offerings more disability inclusive. So I'll pass back over to you, Ben. I hope that answered.
That was great. Yeah, thank you, Anna-May. Yeah, really, really super exciting project and very relevant. I think you mentioned partnerships and you mentioned infrastructure, and I think both of those have been learnings that we've made right through that project. But I think that particularly on the infrastructure, it is very interesting that some of this infrastructure does exist, and you all saw that with the Smart Club and Build Education pairing that Charles and Adrian presented earlier, in that we're not starting from zero. And I think that's the trick here, is to really start to build on what's already there. And there's another organization actually called AG Energies, a part of the PRIO program, who are doing a similar thing. And this is again where we can be smart, and we can bring disability inclusion in as early as possible with existing infrastructure, and make the whole kind of initiative affordable and achievable. So thank you. I think that project's super, super exciting, and looking forward to kind of where that goes next. Thank you, Anna-May. I'm going to pass over to Huda Jaffer now from Selco. Huda, could you, when you respond, just introduce yourself a little and a bit about Selco? Thank you for joining us, by the way. So your organisation, your foundation's actively working towards enhancing and creating inclusive, productive solutions for entrepreneurs with disabilities, and much, much more. I'm interested, could you bring this to life a little for the audience, but also speak to the opportunities that you see for the future of innovation at this intersection?
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us. We're really happy to be here. It's exciting to see all of the work, and looking forward to plugging in best we can. So as Ben mentioned, my name is Huda. I work with Selco Foundation. We primarily have been working on building the ecosystem for energy-driven livelihoods and healthcare to thrive. So what that means is solar-powered livelihoods with energy-efficient equipment, green building design, etc., packaged for different needs of micro enterprises and livelihoods. So we work across agriculture, animal husbandry, textile and craft, retail and service businesses. And what we basically do is support last mile entrepreneurs in three ways. One is on the technology side, so appropriate clean tech, supply, installation, servicing for that. The second is, of course, the finance for it, not just the capex and asset finance, but also working capital whether it's debt finance, equity, or grant support that most of these entrepreneurs need to either get started or to expand. And the third kind of support that we provide is more business development support. So really input, forward linkages, branding, identity, marketing, things like that. Now, for this, what we've primarily been doing with people with disability in India is working across about 13 states, and we have close to 3,000 plus entrepreneurs that have adopted clean energy-led livelihoods and who are really sort of champions and ripple effects in their own right. So right from what we've primarily been doing is sort of matching what types of livelihoods are most preferred for different types of disabilities. So there are three disabilities that we primarily work with: locomotive, audiovisual, and so basically three different types of disabilities that we work with, and we match different livelihood options for these disabled entrepreneurs. The opportunity within India to really inculcate clean energy, energy efficiency as sort of default livelihood packages within disability scheme is really potential, right? So for example, we have different disability schemes that are provided to last mile entrepreneurs. Largely, they're providing, wheelchairs, they're providing crutches, they're providing metallic kind of small shops, right? And that's very limited from an option perspective. So the role that we've really played is kind of expanding those livelihood options to more than 30 to 35 to 40 different livelihood packages that micro enterprises can access with different types of disability. The two innovation opportunities that we've primarily been seeing. So while these solutions are scaling, there's definitely an opportunity to better package them for different types of disability. And that really means sort of integrating new disability tech within the livelihood package. So we've actually been running R&D challenges, catalyzed tech kind of innovation support and grant support to help better package this clean energy driven livelihoods for different entrepreneurs. And the second opportunity that we really see is, in general, when we are trying to design livelihood solutions for someone with disability, we are able to push the boundary overall on the innovation itself in terms of how do we make it more future ready, more need based, more drudgery removed. So what I'm trying to say is any livelihood that we're working for different types of disability is also applicable for gender, is also applicable for climate resilience. So we're finding a really strong potential to sort of redesign some of the livelihood packages by disabled entrepreneurs being at the forefront of this movement. I'll also share some links right after this so the audience gets a better sort of visual sense of what we've been doing as well. But I'm happy to answer questions. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thank you, Huda. That's great. Thanks for bringing that to life. Clearly doing some amazing work, and it does make, when you're talking about livelihoods, it makes me think about actually both the innovation spotlights that we focused on today, because they both have a kind of employment / livelihood kind of angle to them, in a relatively strong way and direct way. So I think I think the work you're doing is almost like foregrounding the need to focus on livelihoods and some practical ways to go out and do it as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we can learn from the work that you're doing within the foundation. So thank you so much for sharing that. And please do, there may be some questions in the chat for you, so please do have a look and answer them directly. Okay, I'm going to keep going. We've got 1 minute. Please hang around if you can. I think we'll go for another 5 minutes. So this one's to Michaela. So hi, Michaela. Thanks for joining live from Barcelona, I think. So you've got deep experience of research and development and innovation at this intersection. What do you see as the key ingredients for successful interventions in this space?
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela. I'm head of research and delivery at GDI Hub. So big part of my job is looking across projects and programs and making connections. So this is right up my street. I mean, we don't have much time, but I wanted to touch on a couple of key ingredients that have actually really come to my mind in this session and listening to the innovators. So the three I wanted to talk about today were: one, enabling connections, so creating the space for innovators such as the ones that have spoken today to connect and work together. And speaking as GDI Hub, as an organization working in this ecosystem, how can we foster and cultivate those connections to support innovators to find the solutions, co-design solutions. The second, I think, key ingredient is getting the funding in the right place to do that. And then the third is the kind of fundamental foundations for inclusion in this case. So I'll try to touch on a little bit about each of those, but I'll be brief. So I think starting from the kind of fundamental foundations and principles for inclusion, this is really about, what do we need in any project, any intervention to ensure that it's disability inclusive. And these would apply often, across the energy access space, but also beyond that when we're talking about climate action, more broadly, climate resilience across all sectors. And a lot of the work we do is also about like enabling those real foundations. There's a lot more information on this in some of the background work we've done for the DSS, which we've just shared a link to in the chat for anyone who wants to look at that bigger picture. So when we're talking about fundamentals for inclusion, we're talking about things like ensuring accessibility of spaces, environments, communication, products. We're talking about inclusive design, co-design, so making sure the right people are in the room when we're designing solutions. So particularly making sure people with disabilities are involved in creating the solutions. But we're also talking really broadly about things like cultural change to be more inclusive, education. And it was really great hearing from the examples today about, using technology as an enabler to create access to education. Because for us, I think this is, technology, assistive technology, accessible technology is really about a vehicle to get to these foundations, make sure we're getting, people into education and so on. There was a question in the chat about, how do we look at things like stigma? This is exactly where these, fundamental principles are so key. Moving on then to kind of getting the funding in the right place as well. This is really, I think, also about looking at the value chain, working across different sectors, taking this kind of ecosystem approach, as we'd call it. And I think we've already heard it from the other speakers, so they've kind of done my job for me. But at GDI Hub, we've worked across 3 different UK international development funded programs that are, all connecting dots here. So working with transforming energy access on disability inclusive energy access, on 80-20-30, on enabling access to life-changing assistive technology, and then with the Frontier Tech Hub on the Smart Mobility project. We look at these all as, all ingredients to creating this like much bigger kind of cultural change, creating new evidence, unlocking new innovation. And it's, amazing that we get to do that, but the funding needs to be there to do it. And how do we do that? I think there's, at a fundamental level here, importance of international policy and strategy. So looking at international climate policy, international disability rights policy to ensure, those documents are reflecting what we need to move the needle. And then that creates the conditions for change in terms of policy and unlocking the doors to finance. However, increasingly, I think a part of that ecosystem also needs to be the private sector. I won't talk more about that because we don't have time. And then lastly, I was just going to talk about the enabling connections a bit more. So I think it's just one reflection actually from the chat today to see just how active the Q&A has been with people who are working on other initiatives that want to get involved and, have innovations they want to share or they're looking to collaborate. This is exactly why this kind of forum is so important for us to kind of unlock those conversations and look at how, we as an ecosystem can also support that, because I really think that is where the future is. I'll stop there. Hopefully that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through that kind of ecosystem lens. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Michaela. That's like an elevator pitch, right? You've got 2 minutes. But that was great. It's really good to kind of hear you talk about the layers that make up this stack that we're trying to build, and how they interrelate and how critical they all are. And I think that's that's both the beauty of it, but also the complexity of the work that's happening in this space. And the more that we can enable the capacity for that to happen and enable those environments, the more likely we're all going to, get where we think we should be going. So thank you. That was great. And I think, it's a nice segue to bring it back to the Transforming Energy Access platform, and to Caroline. So Caroline, again, thanks for joining.
Thanks,
I'll,
Ben.
I'll ask the question, but please do introduce yourself when you respond. So you've through Carbon Trust and specifically the ECAP program, because we've had quite a bit of engagement with the ECAP program, supported lots of energy access businesses over many years. Could you just kind of speak to a little of the integration of the disability support service at that programmatic level? And maybe some of the things that have worked, maybe some of the things that could work better, in enabling businesses like Smart Club and like Sirius to kind of explore these new opportunities.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. As you said, yeah, I'm working on the Energy Catalyst Accelerator program. So we basically support energy access innovators to accelerate their projects. I think the accelerator program as such has had a good focus on GESI, which is previously was, and we've now put more emphasis on the D in there, so it's now GEDSI. And I think just really having that collaboration available with GDI Hub through the T Disability Support Service really helped us shine more of a spotlight on disability and the possibilities of projects working more on that lens. We worked together with GDI Hub, and you delivered a great webinar in the summer, which is actually where both of our projects today that the partnerships that we witnessed today in the webinar met for the first time, I believed, or they were introduced to the innovator network, which I think has been really the critical thing here as well to highlight. It's finding those partnerships and really understanding what is out there and how can projects go one step further than what they are doing, because they might not also know what's available and what's out there. So that's one really critical thing for what GDI Hub has brought to the table for this, I think.
Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, it's been very, very interesting. I think that the scale of the T platform is so vast. I think hopefully, it's clear that there are some successes here, but there's also a lot of learnings in terms of like how do we disseminate the kind of the narrative around disability innovation? How do we do that really effectively across the platform? Because there's so many ways to do that, so many touch points. So I think we've made some learnings, but some of the things that have worked really well, will help us to kind of build better next. And yeah, I think where we've been able to kind of use engagement with the program teams to then connect with innovators and then start to really understand, like, on the ground what's happening, what those opportunities might be. We can then kind of port in assistive tech innovators, that we think are kind of well matched. So I think that's been great. I mean, there's lots of other work that's happened beyond, the stuff we're talking about on this webinar, but specifically that it's been a lot of fun working on this project, and a lot of learnings made, and really excited to see what happens next with on a programmatic level. How that changes, what the next iteration of ECAP or PRIO or Energy Savings Trust looks like next. So very excited about that, and thank you for sharing those insights. We're way over time, if you hadn't guessed. So we don't have time to come back the plan was to come back to you all with a closing statement. We don't have time to do that, so we're going to move on. But thank you so much to the panelists. That was super insightful. And you may be able to spot some questions in the chat that are directed towards you. So please do answer them directly if you can. If not, we can connect afterwards. So we're going to start to wrap. So I don't know what slides are we on, Santosh? Can you flick the slides back on? Is that possible? So whilst we're doing that, huge thank you to the panelists, huge thank you to the innovators. Super excited by what comes next with those innovation opportunities. There's more as well. There's more as well happening kind of behind the scenes. So I think there'll be a final reveal, of everything towards the end of the financial year. So big thank you to you all for contributing, but also a huge thank you for everyone who's joined us today, who may or may not already be familiar with the work that we've been doing within the T platform. And big thanks to the T platform and the Carbon Trust for their support to GDI Hub in the delivery of the Disability Support Service. Wouldn't happen, without the vision that you guys had to introduce this into the platform. So thank you to you. So finally, just a final kind of signposting. On this slide, on the left-hand side, we have the training. So just scan that. We'll also share the link. That'll take you to the 6 training sessions, really kind of bite-sized, easy to access training. And then on the right-hand side, this is a link that you can use that if in the chat you haven't, maybe got the answer that you wanted from the person you wanted to speak to, you can use that QR code, and that will enable you to book some time in with us. So we're running technical assistance triaging sessions. So it'll be a half an hour call, and you'll meet one of the GDI Hub team who are delivering the disability support service. We do have limited time available to do that. So please, if you are interested, please do that today, and then we can book you in. Next slide, please. The final thing just to point you towards is the Innovation Network, the Disability Inclusive Energy Access Innovation Network. There's a QR code there as well. We talked about this earlier, but if you're not already signed up or registered to this group on LinkedIn, please do. It's very easy to sign up, very quick, and then you'll be able to connect more easily with each other, and also there's resources and interesting stories that we're posting on there, links to funding calls, things like that. But also you get the kind of the inside track on the events like this that we're hosting. So we'll put out the comms on those events quite early, and you can book those into your calendar. So please do get involved. So I guess final slide is really just watch this space, because there is a lot happening behind the scenes. Clearly we're waiting to see what the next incarnation of the T platform looks like, and excited to see how the support services fit into that. And please stay connected with us anyway, because we're active in this space. You've heard a little bit about other projects that we're working on. There will be more, and we're really keen to make sure we're building an ecosystem and it's connected. And our role within that is to help convene, really, but also bring that kind of depth of disability inclusion to the conversation. So finally, thank you so much. I apologize we haven't had a chance to answer all the questions. We will try and get around to it afterwards. We will share the presentation somehow. So we'll work out how to do that, and we'll share it with you. And just a final thank you. It's been great, and I hope you have a good day, morning, evening, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben and team.
Thank you.